Hello everybody, welcome back to Its Current Year for another quick battle ladder replay. Today on the Desert's Bounty map. I am playing the Wood Elves, led by good old Durthu, formerly of Warhammer 1 fame when he was quite a powerhouse. Sort of has fallen out of the meta a bit recently given the popularity of Orion and obviously the goodness of the female Glade Lord, but I think he's still got some good matchups, and he can be certainly a powerhouse still in his own right. I'm up against the Warriors of Chaos, led by Sartorial, the Everwatcher today. So front line of Chaos Marauders, fairly standard. Also the Mirror Guard, as well as some just regular Chaos Warriors. Obviously the Mirror Guard here are immune to psychology, so no terror routes through Durthu or anything like that. 2 units of Chaos Knights with Lancers, who you don't see all that often. Sadly, Chaos Knights aren't the greatest unit. I just think they can struggle a bit. I mean, they're great on the charge, obviously good stats. Even, they're a shock cavalry unit, but even in prolonged combat, I guess their stats carry them through, and obviously great armor and a good HP pool, but their speed just means that a lot of the time they can just get kited around, and sometimes it's sort of easy to sort of work down the rest of the force before you sort of have to take them on. But I guess with the Hounds with Poison backing them up here, that's a good little 1-2 punch. Same with the Chariots. So see if they can be made use of here. 3 units of regular Marauder Horsemen just for some counter skirmishing. So a pretty tight, I guess generally a pretty elite Wood Elf, Warriors of Chaos force to take on the Wood Elves here. For my own forces, obviously I've got my own little skirmish units here. Glade Riders outrange, basically every other skirmish cav in the game quite handily, maybe with the exception of Illyrian Reavers, and obviously the fact that they're faster and with their own poison to slow any pursuers. They're just a great unit, probably one of the best. They're costly. They're not a throwaway unit. They're not chaff. You've got to be used right, but they are a fantastic unit. So they'll get some work done. 3 units of Eternal Guard with shields in the front line. 2 units of Treekin. I'm trying something a little bit different here, and 3 units of Wildwood Rangers. So obviously Wildwood Rangers can pack a punch, great melee attack, and good armor piercing. And I guess there's no forests here, so that's not really that. It's not their Guardian of the Wildwood trait isn't really that worthwhile. But they're like most things, I guess. Melee defense 36. Armor 40, they're very squishy, but I guess with the Warriors of Chaos being my opponent here, I'm not going to come up against any sort of mass bowline or anything like that. Can work them down from a distance. So they might have a bit of punch here. Got a Branch Wraith here who's taken Pendulum and Earthblood, as well as Durthu, who just has the Sword of Death and the Manticore summon. So some spellcasting potential here, certainly. Particularly with the Pendulum. Obviously Pendulum's a great unit, great spell against Warriors of Chaos, particularly the armored units in their roster. So we get off to a pretty good start here. Obviously these guys, the Hagbane tips and normal Glade Riders, are going to be very effective at screening out the Marauder Horsemen, just because they outrange them massively. 80 range to 150. These guys aren't really going to be threatened by the counter skirmishing, so they can call the shots here. Got to be careful I don't waste too much of my ammunition, because obviously when they stay on the edge like that, if they move out, there's only so far that the arrows can track them. So got to be careful there not to waste the ammunition, because it is precious, and it does have the potential to do obviously a good deal to sort of his other fast movers, things like Chaos Knights. I can maybe get some good engagement and trap them in with spears and that kind of thing when they're really slowed. So they're going to push in now, though. They're going to try and sort of form up maybe with these Boarhounds, who I'm trying to target, and pick off a few models. But again, just moving back, just using the range to my advantage. I think he does get a few volleys in here as the front lines square up. I'm going to just pull around the back here, use my own front lines. I'm not too worried about any of this coming in and rear charging. Eternal Guards with shields will stand up fine to that. So I'm going to charge him. I'm going to bring my forces in here. I'm not going to wait any further. I see an opening here to get the Wildwood Rangers in through to the Mirror Guard, but they do actually pivot away, as you'll see here. And I do notice this little This little pocket here is sort of on its own, so I am going to try and start to sort of move around. I don't really want to take on all of this at once, but as I say that, you know, probably a mistake here bringing these guys all around, but they will be on skirmish mode. Sort of Daith is going down, so I'm getting a good blob here. I figure this is a good way to sort of just work down the mirror guard, and I do see the opportunity for a pendulum here, which will do a real number on these. Oh, that didn't actually do as much as I thought. Probably going to break off these marauders, but didn't get a great line through those Chaos Warriors actually. Again, my speed here is telling, particularly with the poison. You know, 68 speed, I can pull out, I can not allow anything to really, although I should be doing better here with this unit of Marauder Horsemen. And the frontline fighting is going quite well, particularly this little engagement. The Knights have committed here, but I do have Wildwood Rangers who do have really good armor piercing. Unfortunately, these Eternal Guard have been worked down, but I am getting a Lamentation of Despairs, which manages to clip my own Treekin quite frustratingly, and the Treekin just coming in. Treekin are actually really, really good at holding back heavy cavalry. They've got great melee defense, great armor, a lot of HP. Not a great damage dealer, but they're just a real bulwark against that kind of unit. A Summoned Manticore coming down now, trying to get a rear charge, maybe try and terror out these guys and get them out, but they are very healthy, so it's probably not going to take place just yet. And again, I'm just taking my units of Glade Riders out here and trying to just get picks where I can. As much as anything, just trying to lure these guys away from the frontline fighting. I'm pretty happy with how this is going at the moment. You know, my Spears are doing well, my Wildwood Rangers are doing reasonably well. The Knights haven't really been able to do a lot of cycle charging just due to the mass and the road blocking of the Treekin. And we've got Sarthoriel in against Durthu now, and this is a matchup that I think Sarthoriel's probably a little bit overmatched in. You know, he's dangerous for sure, but he's not a beat stick. Durthu's a beat stick, although the Knights are coming in. Lack of armor piercing is not gonna help them, but pinning him in place, I guess, if Sarthoriel wants to pull out, which it seems he does. Again, over here, Wildwood Rangers and Treekin are just fighting back to back, and you see the amount of stuff that they're holding back here. A unit of Chaos Warriors, a unit of Marauders, a unit of Chaos Knights. So they're sort of holding out as a little island here, as a bit of a pit fight breaks out here. I get another Sword of Daith going down here. I figure I've got a bit of a blob here. I've also got Sarthoriel. If I can try and sort of alleviate this whilst Durthu's doing a bit of work over here against the Chaos Knights, then it's just going to soften them up for later, because I feel like we're doing well here. With that said though, Chaos Knight's coming into the rear, so some good cycle charging by my opponent here. He's not sticking in the combat with any of his units, or with any of his Chaos Knights. But you see here, coming back to the fight, they've cleaned up and they've worked off these guys, which have rallied, but we've brought these Glade Riders back, and their poison here is probably going to be as relevant as any sort of damage they can do. The Chaos Knights are struggling to pull out of this combat, and with the poison, the Warhounds just can't make up the ground. So this fight's gone okay for us. The Knights have pulled out. Unfortunately, the Wildwood Rangers here have broken, but the Treekin are just holding. They're really, really tough to kill. There's not a lot of, nothing like a unit of halberds with armor-piercing anti-large or anything like that. Dragon Ogres, that kind of thing that's really going to threaten them this game. So they're just really sort of holding their own, and really, 9 models on this one. These guys have been fighting by themselves for some time now, still 10 models here. I was, at this point of the battle, really running low on Winds of Magic, so unfortunately we're probably only going to see one more heal, I think, from the Branch Wraith, and so no more pendulums, sadly, or anything like that. But I've still, at least, with the ammo running out on these guys, have some ability for recharges and some cycle charging, or even just mass. If I get a good engagement with Sarthoriel and Durthu or something like that, or the Chariots, I can pin them in place with these guys at the very least, and allow time for the Treekin to maybe get a few hits, Durthu to get a few hits. These guys out here are just doing the work of the gods. They've only got 35 kills, but their worth has been in just holding back the pocket that was out here. Although it's starting to look a little bit sparse now for me. It is sort of starting to look as though just the numbers game is going to go in the favour of Chaos. At this stage, I'm 149 to 275, and if you look at what's left for the Chaos, 23 Chaos Knights here, 19 Chaos Knights here, 3 Chariots. Poison Warhounds are going to be good just for debuffing my remaining troops. Again, these Treekin out here are just sort of doing their bit and holding. These ones have broken, and we've got some Wildwood Rangers coming back in. Don't think they're going to be too relevant. They're going to be pushed off now, in fact, even by this pocket of Knights and Wolves. But the Hagbane tips, as you see, they're just holding stuff back, allowing me to deal with basically what's left on the Chaos roster piece by piece. And Durthu here is making a beeline for Sartorial, because I figure, given I've got a pretty healthy Durthu, I've still got another character on the ground, I've got some cavalry and some Treekin left. The balance of power is not looking bad for me. Nice Lamentation of Despair going down there. I think, I think maybe hitting some of my own troops. I don't really like that ability, to be honest. It never really seems to do anything. But with the Warhounds shattering, Durthu reasonably healthy. He's not gonna, he's not gonna be too worried about the chariots and the knights here. He's, as I said, he's a pretty decent crowd clearer in his own right. So he can hold his own out there. And in fact, another unit of Chaos Marauders has shattered. So at this stage, it's the Branch Wraith and Durthu fighting back to back, two woodland creatures against the onslaught of chaos, led by this Lord of Change here. My Treekin in the distance, unfortunately, they look like they won't be coming back, but I have 7 unit models here, still with 2,000 HP, so they're pretty slow. But if they can make their way back into the fight, who knows what can happen. An Earthblood, as I said, going off down here, healing some hit points. That's going to bring Durthu up to probably about 4,000 hit points. And Sartorial really can't afford to stick in this fight anymore. I mean, 2 hits from Durthu here, and he's done. So, and his physical resistance is obviously, his magical resistance is pretty telling, because Durthu as a forest creature does do magical attacks, but it's just the sheer damage output at this stage of my 2 characters that are left, and there's really nothing here that has the armor piercing or, in Durthu's case, the anti-large to get through. The Treekin, as you say, they've brought, as I said before, they've come back. Hounds have shattered. Another Lamentation of Despair, doing next to nothing. But at this stage, it's looking like the Wood Elves, just on the back of everything they've got left being very, very hard to kill, are gonna maybe hold out here and be able to call the day. The balance of power is now actually quite significantly in my favour, and at this point of the battle, an Arcane Conduit might help, might be able to get us, he may be able to get a Searing Doom down or something like that, but there's not going to be a final transmutation, you wouldn't think, or anything like that, that's really going to, be that real burst of damage to push this back in my favour. The Knights, their Vigor's low, and the Chariot, low Vigor means obviously a fair combat malice, and a debuff to, I believe, your charge bonus as well. So as we see sort of the Warriors of Chaos sort of trying to reform here for one last push in on the Wood Elves. They'll come in. Durthu, I've got all 3 of my units here, and I'm just spam clicking Sartorial, and you see here 476. I think Durthu in the next couple of seconds will lay a hit down, and Sartorial is going to buy the farm. 199. As I said before, the magic resistance on Durthu here is on Sartorial is actually really, really telling. Probably helped him last longer than he otherwise would have. But with the Lord of Change being smited by the Spirit of Durthu, the rest of the Warriors of Chaos force routes, and that's the game. So pretty down to the wire, that one. I went something obviously a little bit different. I have to say I don't play with Treekin very often at all. I do enjoy playing with the Wood Elves, but probably Treekin and Wildwood Rangers are 2 units that I very, very rarely pick. Obviously Glade Riders, I think, are one of the staples of Wood Elf play. Likewise for, Way Watchers, Wild Riders, that kind of thing. But, I was going something different. Durthu, so wanted a little bit of a sort of tree theme. Obviously would have been handy to have some woodland terrain, so these guys might have had some bonus versus large and that kind of thing, because they were stuck fighting I guess the chariots and the knights and things like that. But even without it, their armor piercing is obviously great, and yeah, their stats are reasonable, so I'd say these guys got reasonable value. they're really, really squishy. So obviously against a faction like Chaos that doesn't have really any meaningful shooting, they can at least make their way into combat, and you can bank on the fact that they're going to be semi-healthy. Marauder Horsemen obviously could potentially chip them down, but I guess given them so massively outranged by Glade Riders and that there's a lot of anti-large around here and just sort of putting bodies in the way with the Treekin and the spears, they really didn't really get any volleys off there. And as you see here, there's not a lot of value on these horsemen, particularly in comparison to my own Glade Riders. So even though they didn't do a lot of damage, the Treekin just hold. They're just really hard to kill. Again, there's no halberds, there's no great weapons or chosen or anything like that in this list. So they didn't really have anything that they could afford to just sit in combat and just soak up damage. So I felt like they actually, given the list that was brought against me, they actually did a really good job. I think they actually got definitely their money's worth on that. And then at the end, obviously, just providing bodies for Durthu to be able to get attacks off against Sarthoriel and against the Knights, and even I think the Chariots are quite healthy actually. That's interesting. All in all, a build that was a bit of fun, but I think had some moves in this matchup as well. So thanks to Fireborn for the game, and thank you for watching, and we'll be back soon with more. Take care.